Welcome to the discussion for Part 4, Chapter 4. In this chapter, Raskolnikov goes to see Sonia, who is surprised that he is there, even though he had told her that he would come. And she's going through a wave of emotion. She's kind of embarrassed. She's excited. She's confused. She's curious. She doesn't know why he's there. And he's just pacing around the room, and he is asking her a series of questions. And he's saying, what would happen when Katerina Ivanova dies? And she doesn't want to think about that. And he's like, he's not being very compassionate in how he's saying it, but he's trying to lead her through the thought process of how will this all play out? He says, if Katerina Ivanova has a consumptive disease, like the end is her dying. She doesn't get better from this. So when she dies, are you going to take the children? And she's like, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. And he's like, well, what happens then if the children are in your care and Katerina Ivanova's dead and you get something happens to you and you get taken to the hospital? What happens to the children in that situation? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, she does know. He's like, I've seen children as young as Polenka on the streets, and that is the only road. There will be no other. There, in his mind, he's like, that is the inevitable end. The inevitable end is that Katerina Ivanova will die. Sonia will not be able to handle working the work that she does without her sisters also being sucked up into that lifestyle, or something happening to Sonia and them they're just being on their own to survive that way as well. And Sonia is like, oh no, God won't let that happen. And Raskolnikov's like, God won't let that happen? Like, the insinuation is God let it happen to you. So we can't say that God won't let that happen. And she doesn't want to hear that. And all of a sudden he's walking around. He's not saying anything. It's silent for like 5 minutes. And then he just rushes to her and kneels down and kisses her foot. And she's like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, she's totally taken aback by this. And he's like, well, I'm not bowing down to you. I'm bowing down to all the suffering of humanity. And she's just like, I don't know what that means. Like, she's really just confused. And he says to her, this is what he says to her. He says, it's not because of your dishonor and your sin, but because of your great suffering, because you are a great sinner, that's true. And your worst sin is that you've destroyed and betrayed yourself for nothing. Isn't that fearful? Isn't it fearful that you're living in this filth that you loathe so, and at the same time you know yourself, you've only to open your eyes to see it, that you're not helping anyone by it, not saving anyone from anything? It would be 1,000 times wiser to leap into the water and end it all. He's very bluntly coming out and saying, you've sacrificed yourself to become a prostitute, and you continue to live in this life that is so unlike who you really are. He knows that she's very like innocent, sweet, God-fearing girl, and that she's living in this depravity for one reason only, and that is to save her family, to save Katerina Ivanova and these 3 children. But Raskolnikov is like, you've done it all for nothing, because there's only one way this ends. And the only way it ends is Katerina Ivanova is going to die, and those 2 girls are eventually also going to turn to prostitution. And then you will have done all this for nothing. That, like, they will not have been spared anything. That's his take on it. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, that they may end up that way, but I don't think her first intention was saving them from prostitution. I think her first intention in doing it was saving their lives because they were starving. And so she was just trying to get them to eat. But um, his point is that she sacrificed herself for nothing. And he said that in his mind, he's thinking, there are only three ways out for Sonia. It's the canal, like she commits suicide, she throws herself into the water, the madhouse, where she eventually just goes crazy because she can't handle the contradiction of what she's doing compared to who she is, or that she does let herself sink into the depravity of what she's doing. She actually ends up enjoying it and becoming like a real prostitute at heart. And he's like, there's only one of these three things in his mind. And that's why he's saying it would be better for you to just jump into the canal, because in that way, in his mind, she continues to remain that innocent creature, but she's spared the life of continuing to do these depraved things and suffering for it. And she says, she's saying, well, God's not going to allow that. And he says, how do you know that there is a God? Who is God to you? Like, what does God mean to you? And she's like, he's everything to me. And Raskolnikov doesn't understand this because he doesn't see how God has saved her or helped her in any way. But he's realizing, like, oh, this is what's keeping her alive. This is what's keeping her, this is the hope that she has that's keeping her alive. And in his mind, it feels like insanity. He's like, oh, he calls her a religious maniac. Like, oh, this explains it. And he's like, she's one of these religious maniacs. And he says, he sees a Bible sitting on her chest of drawers. And he's like, where did you get that? And she says, Lizaveta. And he's like, she says, I asked her to bring it to me. And he's like, you knew Lizaveta? And she said, yes, she would come and we would read it. And so here's, another sweet, innocent person living this very rough life. Lizaveta had been like basically a slave to her sister and being beaten, and, all the work that she did, the sister took all the money. And, another person finding out that Lizaveta also, this was her lifeline, this was her hope, and knowing how it ended for Lizaveta obviously murdered. And Raskolnikov asks her to read to him the story of Lazarus, which is what Porfiry had asked him when Porfiry was talking to him in that interview that they had when Razumihin had brought Raskolnikov over to meet Porfiry. He had began to ask him a series of questions. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in the story of Lazarus? Of course, the story of Lazarus is Lazarus being raised from the dead when everybody thinks that it's all hope is lost and gone. And the sisters believe that, it's too late, nothing can be done. And yet Jesus is saying, if you just believe, that he will have ever, he will live. And so he asks her to read, and he can tell by the way that she's reading that she knows this story by heart. She probably knows all these stories by heart. And that this is very personal for her. Like she almost feels exposed a little bit because he's seeing her heart while she's reading this, because these words have great meaning for her. And so she's really showing kind of who she is to him. And he says to her, I've abandoned my family and I want you to come with me. And she's like, what does that mean? You've abandoned your family and you want me to come with you? And he says, I only have you now. Let us go together. I come to you. We're both accursed. Let us go our way together. And she's like, go where? She steps back. She's like, I don't know what you're asking me. And he's like, how do I know? I only know it's the same road. I know that and nothing more. It's the same goal. And he says, haven't you done the same? You too have transgressed, have had the strength to transgress. You have laid hands on yourself and have destroyed a life, your own. It's all the same. So he's trying to equate them as having done the same thing, that he's taken a life, and so there's punishment for that. And she has also, in his viewpoint, taken a life. She's taken her own life by what she's done. She's basically like killed who she was through what she's doing. And he's like, we're both the same. We've both killed someone and we need to start a new life. And since we're the same, he's equating them as the same. And, maybe they are the same in the sense that both have sinned, in the sense of these kind of like irrevocable, at the time, of the 10 Commandments type of a sin. He's saying, we're both on the same path. Like, we're both sinners. We've both taken a life. He hasn't told her yet that he has, but he's like, we're on the same road. Let's go together away from this. And he says, because you can't remain like this. That's why. And she says, you must look things straight in the face at last and not weep like a child and cry that God won't allow it. What would happen if you should really be taken to the hospital tomorrow? She is mad and in consumption. She'll soon die. And the children? Do you mean to tell me Polenka won't come to grief? Haven't you seen children here on the street corners set out by their mothers to beg? Children can't remain children here. Yet children, are the image of Christ. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He bade us honor and love them. They are the humanity of the future. And Sonia's just distraught by this. She's like, what could be done? What could be done? And he's like, I'm going to come. He's like, he tells her, he says, what's to be done? Break what must be broken once and for all, and take the suffering on oneself. What you don't understand, you'll understand later. Freedom and power, and above all power, over all trembling creation and all the ant-heap. That's the goal. Remember that. That's my farewell message. So I think he's trying to come again to the point that there is really, that there's, in his mind, it's all going to come to one end anyway, and that in the end it will be the same, that the children will really not be better off because their mother is going to die, and they're going to be in such a dire situation that Sonia will not have saved them any better life. She will have saved their lives for sure, because they are eating, they'll be clothed. But once Katerina Ivanova dies, it's going to be hard, because she will have to bring those children to live with her. They're going to be in just as much poverty. And what is she going to do? She's going to go off and be a prostitute, and they're going to be around those people. They're going to be in that lifestyle. They're going to be probably, what Raskolnikov is saying, they're going to be thieves and beggars and probably prostitutes. And she will have suffered all this, horrible indignation, embarrassment at what she's doing for nothing, just to see them do it too. And he's saying, let's get out of here. That's going to happen to them anyway. There's nothing you can do to save them. You staying here, they're going to that's going to be their end anyway. So let's go, you and me, and start something new. Let's go away from here and have freedom and some sort of power over our own lives. And she's not comprehending really what he's saying, but that's what he's saying to her. And he says, someday later on, you'll understand. And he says, if I come tomorrow, I'll tell you who killed Lizaveta. And she gets scared. She's like, you know who killed her? And he's like, if you see me again, I will tell you. And so he ends up leaving. And then there is a twist at the end of this chapter where Remember when Svidrigailov had followed home Sonia after he had kind of like been lurking outside of Raskolnikov's apartment, and he sees them all out on the street, Sonia and Razumihin and Raskolnikov, and they're all going their separate ways. And he follows Sonia. I don't know if he knew who she was or if he was just curious because he had his eye on Raskolnikov and he's like, let me see who this is. And so he follows her home and they are going side by side into these apartments. Remember, I said that the way that these apartments are, they're up and down, but they're right next to each other. So she is in this one and there's all these apartments, and he's in this one and there's all these apartments. Well, the twist at the end of this book is that his apartment abuts up to an empty room that she has always known and considered empty, but he can get into that empty room. And he was in that empty room standing there, and that is the wall to her apartment. And he could hear, and he stood there for an hour and he listened to everything that they said, everything that Raskolnikov said, everything that transpired between them. And he was like, very interesting. And so he goes and he gets a chair and he puts it down right outside that door because he wants to be prepared for next time Raskolnikov comes. He says he doesn't want to have to stand to listen to the whole conversation. He wants to hear the conversation in person because Raskolnikov has just said that next time he comes, he'll tell her who killed Lizaveta. So that is the end of chapter 4. Meet me next in chapter 5 and we'll find out what happens